All right, welcome. I'm Nolan Dalla with Slapshot, brought to you by Spreads.ca and PointSpreads.ca. We got a show for you tonight, a special edition of I can't even talk, Slapshot. Only had one bottle of wine today. We are going to talk about team nicknames because that was in the news today. Two big breaking news events. The Washington used to be Redskins are now going to be called something else. And the NHL's 32nd franchise is going to be called the Seattle Kraken. So we're going to talk about Redskins, football this, NHL that, and the Kraken. My guests, let me introduce them quickly, and then we'll get right to the show. Up there on the really good-looking guy up there at the 10 o'clock p.m. position, that is Mr. James Hammer. He's an attorney from the Bay Area, Cal Berkeley graduate, I believe, and lives in the Bay Area. For all your personal injury needs, contact Mr. James Hammer. What a perfect name for an attorney. All right, James, we on the air, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I just got done chasing an ambulance and I'm right back in here waiting for you guys. So looking forward to it. You
may have some business in pro sports if you follow those guys. All right, next in our box here, down at the 7 or 8 o'clock position, he is from Brooklyn, New York, lived in Tampa, Florida, Houston, now in Las Vegas. He still can't find a home. He is the one and only Randy Kolek. Randy, welcome.
Thank you very much, Nolan. Great to be here.
Oh, that was real subtle. You're saving up your energy, I know. All right, you follow him on Facebook.
I'm just trying to get along.
And then we have down in the, I guess, the 4 o'clock position, this is Doug Grismore. He's a longtime Barge group. We're all Bargers from the poker group, but we also do a lot of stuff in sports. And this is a gentleman who, I don't even know what to say about Doug, except that he lives in Seattle. He's going to be talking about the Kraken. I'm dying to hear what your opinions are because I don't know what any of you are going to say about these teams. Gentlemen, are you ready to start off with the Washington, what used to be called Redskins?
Yes,
Let's
sir.
jump on in.
All right, the artist that used to be known as Prince, now we have a football team that used to be known as the Redskins, which as of today, ladies and gentlemen, they are now going to be called the Washington Football Team. I'm not making this up. The Washington Football Team, that's the name. Okay, and I see already Randy's laughing about this. Hammer, you get out of the box. You're the leadoff batter. Take a crack. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Washington Football Team, I mean, that's pretty absurd. I think that they need to get to a nickname. And, judging by that Washington Post column and story, I think maybe the Washington Douchebags or Harassers would be the best possible name under the current ownership. But if they're not going to go with my suggestion, which I doubt they would, although that douchebag logo would be probably pretty cool. I think it's got to be the Red Tails. I really, really, really like that, the sort of nod to the Tuskegee Airmen and that sort of thing. It sort of meets the moment that we're in. They're able to keep what I think is the best logo they have, that like cursive R. They could keep that for the Red Tails, and like I'm all in on that. The Washington Football Team is a little bit absurd, but I hope they move to something better real soon.
Randy, you called the Washington Redskins the worst run pro sports team in all of pro sports. You said something to that effect on Facebook today. I don't think this is going to change your opinion of that.
Well, it's just ridiculous. I mean, as I said there, they have a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations of habits to change. And you can't do that with the Washington football teams. Everybody is going to call them the Redskins because nobody's going to call them the football team. And so if your goal is to change the name, you got to give people like us something, or else they're going to be the Redskins. As I mentioned, every now and then I still say the Bullets, or I think of Stanford as the Indians, or St. John's as the Redmen. If they don't give us something to call them, I just can't call them the football team. I can't do it, so they'll be the Redskins, unfortunately, until they give me something else. I mean, James's suggestion could catch on, D-bags, but I like the Red Tails. I never heard that one before. That's a great one.
So that's 2 votes for the Red Tails. By the way, I couldn't believe I was reading this before we get to Doug. I couldn't believe this. They are actually selling merchandise the Redskins, or excuse me, the Washington football team. I'm going to lean down. That's the logo, by the way. It's up on the website of the team. Actually, that's going to be. I guess it'll be a collector's item for a little while. Doug, your thoughts on this?
It's freaking terrible, Randy. You know what I think. It's absurd, right? To your point, like everyone's going to call them what they've been used to calling them because they've been given no alternative. And I find it. I'm going to use the word cowardly here. Like they sort of bent. If they had all this will to keep it, they should have kept it. I disagree with that. I'm glad they didn't keep what they had, but they didn't change. Like nothing's different now. So we're all going to be stuck in the same habit. I think that's going to be really fun. It compares very much to the opposite effect to the thing we're going to talk about second, where somebody took a chance on a out there kind of name, which is super fun. But like they didn't make a decision, they didn't do anything, and it's appalling to me, quite frankly.
The Redskins, you know that Dan Snyder was very reluctant to do this. He said at one time, I think 3 or 4 years ago, he was interviewed, said, I will never change the team name. Then, of course, the corporate sponsors, Federal Express, who has the naming rights to the stadium, some other big companies that are connected to the Washington, formerly the Redskins. Here I am, I'm lapsing into old habits too. Once it came down to the big bucks, it wasn't about morality anymore. Let's talk about the motivation for, this is not done out of the goodness of Daniel Snyder's heart. You agree, James?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely not. That should have had like an asterisk at the end that said, unless it gets to be too expensive, in which case I will throw the team away. We'll name them the football team and we'll move on. Like, it's interesting to listen to them try and spin it as though, it's something more than that. But when FedEx said, look, we're going to pull the naming rights, we're going to exercise our out in that contract, that was just too much money. And when you talk about the other owners that he's in a fight with financially and things like that, he cannot take that sort of pressure right now. So, it's a purely business decision, and as are most decisions nowadays in sports, for better or worse, at least this one is for better. So,
Randy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dan Snyder is basically sorry you were offended. That's kind of the apology that he did here. This is not the actions of somebody changing their names for the betterment of anything. I mean, this is a guy, like James said, FedEx made it 100% sure that he was going to have to do it, and Amazon did the same thing when they took the stuff off the website, so his hand was basically tied, and I think he showed his ass by calling them the Washington football teams. I mean, I think someday we're going to hear that story that this is him showing his rear end to everybody.
It's funny. I got to bring this up to Doug because there were some jokes about, an offensive name of a team, and shouldn't they change the team from the Washington Redskins and make it the DC Redskins or something like that? Of course, now we have Doug living in the other Washington. I mean, by that Washington State. No controversies out there, I guess, about this kind of stuff, right?
Well, it's funny. The thing that occurred to me to mention that dawned on me was the corporate naming rights thing also has a Seattle angle to it. We'll get into that a little bit later when we'll talk about the absolutely insane name of the thing they replaced the arena with, and that Amazon has the naming rights for, but they didn't name it the Amazon Arena or whatever. But I like that the sponsors are flexing their muscle. I think that's important, and I'm glad that they're doing it. Like this, still, I'm gonna say cowardly and craven move. I really think it is. It's business only. Like there was literally no nod to anything here, and that's super disappointing.
All right,
real quick.
Go ahead, Jay.
Real quick, Nolan. It's funny, you say that they're selling that logo, that Washington football team. I mean, it's absurd that they're selling it. But I mean, I'm more worried about the people who are buying it. I mean, that is fugly right there. I mean, I can't imagine sporting that even if like you paid me to. So really, sort of a disconnect. My guess is since money does drive this, the sales of that logo will make it that they make that change much faster than they anticipate doing so now. That's for sure.
It could be that the Edsel of all logos, like the Ford Edsel, like you got to buy it just because it's a collector's item or something.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so you guys have been way too agreeable. I didn't ask you three to be on this show to completely agree all the time, and I know how much you guys fight with each other normally, and I'm usually in that tangle too. So let's get into something else. Not quite hockey yet, but let's talk about this whole movement. And I make light of it a little bit, but we'll be serious also. Any direction you want to go is fine. The question I have is the political correctness of sports and names, team nicknames, and so forth. You know where I'm going with this. Where does it end? Kansas City Chiefs, Cleveland Indians, Atlanta Braves, and then on and on and on. And listen, we're all going to draw the line somewhere. Where do we draw the lines? Who wants to field that? Who wants to field that curveball first?
I mean, I'll go. I think that slippery slope arguments tend to be like challenging for me insofar as like it's often used to like, well, this example is okay, but who knows where that is. Drawing a line is really hard, and drawing a line in anything can be hard. And it's sort of like the famous Supreme Court case about pornography that I'll know it when I see it. And I think that Redskins certainly fails to meet the test of what I think is appropriate in a more modern society. I dare not use the word woke in Randy's presence, but I don't know about Indians, but I think I don't see this as it has legs now, but I refuse to believe it's going to go much further than Redskins. I mean, I think about, they've been talking about, I'm 39. They've been talking about the Redskins nickname for basically my entire life. And we're now changing, and really it was FedEx that did this. I don't see that as it continuing much further than Redskins. Maybe it gets Indians, maybe it gets Chiefs. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but I don't think it's going to go much further than that. I don't think we have to worry about that.
Randy?
I mean, I think it's stupid if it goes beyond the Redskins. I mean, I could imagine there may be something out there that has to change also. But I think you could differentiate, at least in my mind, I think you could differentiate between the Redskins and teams like the Braves or the Seminoles or the Chiefs. Of those words, the only one that's a derogatory term for Native Americans is Redskins, and the others are more descriptive of a title like, sergeant or captain or something like that, and nobody's upset about the Washington Generals other than they suck, as competition. But so I don't think it should go any further unless there's something that really stands out. I mean, if you start looking at teams like, the Yankees or it's just there will be no end. So I think at some point people just have to say, no, we're not doing that, and there's no good reason to do that. And I mean, the Seminole, again, my love for Florida State, but the Seminole Indians down there are all supportive of what Florida State does because it's respectful of the culture as opposed to, mocking of it. So I just think other people should mind their business at this point, and it'll go away.
I don't know. So I'll be a little more controversial than that. I think there's more to do. It was interesting that like one of the it was partially in jest, but it was interesting that you mentioned one of the names that you mentioned before was the Washington Bullets. You remember why the basketball team changed it, right?
Because the players were bringing guns and bullets into the locker room, weren't they?
Among other things, but yeah. The other one that I think it was interesting the way the Braves talked about it, where they talked about Braves is probably fine. We've got general support for it. But the tomahawk chop thing we're thinking about, like, I don't know how you make fans not do that. Like, that's a whole different problem. But there's other ones that I think are interesting too. Like, I remember, I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 15 years ago or so, where we had very active conversations about whether or not they wanted to change the logo of the Cleveland Indians, right?
Right.
And we went back and forth on whether or not that logo was respectful. It ended up not changing. But one of the things we're seeing in society today is that both between the various different types of social unrest plus COVID, we're seeing things that eventually would change in society changing a lot faster. And there's momentum behind a lot more things. It's kind of unprecedented, at least in my lifetime. I'm only 55, but like I haven't seen this much movement socially in a bunch of different topics in a really long time. I'll use an example from my work. I work in technology, and a thing that we've tried very hard to work out of our vernacular over time are common phrases in tech that we use. A really good example is in database technology, we talk about a master database and a number of slave copies. And that's the standard terminology. It's in all of the textbooks. Everybody that went to computer science school got taught this. Those are not the right terms. Primary and secondary is much better. We absolutely have to change it. Working that through people's vocabularies that have been trained it for multiple generations can be a challenge. But we're seeing momentum in those places where we haven't seen it before. And I think it's really positive change for society. Although, as we're seeing, it's hard for a lot of people to accept some of these things.
Yeah. Well, it's like the term owner has started to take some heat a little bit as well. Someone owning a team of predominantly African American players. That's I feel like there are other names that could certainly describe that. It's funny. Before we were talking about this, I was talking with a friend about what is the second most offensive team name. And it was funny, we both agreed that it was the Fighting Irish. And that actually it's not the Indians or the Seminoles that's next. It's actually the Fighting Irish, which, there's quite the Notre Dame contingent, and I can't imagine that's changing anytime soon. And I'm sure I'll get lots of hate mail for that. So sorry. Go Irish.
Yeah,
Randy, any last thoughts there, Randy?
Yeah, my family is too loud, so I had to put it on mute for a second.
That's all right.
I mean, I don't personally care what individual companies what they do as far as their nomenclature, and I agree with the point that Doug made about that particular usage. I never thought about it, and I've used it, and it's inappropriate, And I don't have any issue with that. I think there's a difference between stuff like that and people saying we have to get rid of the Yankees name because it has Civil War imagery or stuff like that. I think there's a limit to what we should do, but we can still do what's easy to do. I don't know. This is not a big. I'm not a big fan of this. This entire change of language. I'm okay with it, but I just dislike us looking at historical figures through today's eyes, other than as we discuss the completeness of their life. It shouldn't take away from the things that we like about them, but we should talk about the bad things. So if you want to say that Braves is a bad thing to use, I think you can make the alternative argument and talk about why they're called the Braves and how that's not a derogatory term. I think people can have the fight without fighting. They can have the conversation, so.
All right, good discussion, gentlemen.
That's my point.
I think we've put that to rest. Some agreement on the Washington football team, as they'll be known if we ever get an NFL season in 2020. So a little more agreement there on that topic than I expected. I know we're not going to have any agreement on this next topic because I know that the gentleman right there below me, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, but I know he's really against this, and I can't stand this nickname. And I know, Randy, you're for the nickname. James, I don't know where you're at, and we're going to hear your opinion in a moment. In fact, you're going to be first out of the box as soon as I change my background and show you what we're looking at there. The Seattle Kraken is just announced today as the brand new NHL team name. I'll move it out of the way again. It's the
Oh, that's
Seattle
the alternative
Kraken.
logo, though. It's not the main logo.
It's what?
Yeah,
That's the alt logo.
that logo's stupid, you know. But,
I pulled it off the internet. It's got to be accurate.
No,
That's right.
The actual logo is super cool, and that is not
Oh
it.
no, you're killing me, man.
Let me see if I can make it my background. Give me a second.
All right.
While James talks about it, I'll pull it up.
All right, just a second. James, you go first because I know where those two guys stand. Where do you
Yeah.
vote on this one?
All right, so first I have to put my cards on the table. Number one, I hate Seattle sports. I love Seattle. I love the people of Seattle, but the Seahawks-Niners rivalry kills me. And second, I live in Sacramento. They had their basketball team stolen, so they thought it'd be a great idea to steal ours, and they didn't get it, so screw them. Second, I cannot stand logos that are not plural. I mean, it is just an affront that that's not the Kraken. It's the Kraken. Okay, having put that on the table, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. I know.
Shut
I
this
know.
thing off.
I know. I'll never be asked back. I get it. I like it's clever, it's creative, it's out of the box. I as a former headline writer, I like, oh my gosh, defense is Kraken. Like there's so many, the goalie, there's so many good things. There's puns, there's all of it. I mean, it makes so much sense. I wanted to hate it. I wanted to hate it so bad. The logo is slick. I just really like it, but I look forward to decades of hating the Seattle Kraken because I'm sure they'll be in that Pacific Division. So, there's that and that alone. So I'm sorry, Nolan. It's been a pleasure. If you cut me off, bye everybody. Now's the time.
Well, you got the ultimate compliment having somebody that doesn't like Seattle sports to say they love it. And Rennie, I know where you're at, so let's go down to Doug, who lives in Seattle, who actually has some authority here as a spokesperson. What do you think?
Oh, let's see if I can get this. I think it's awesome. I love that they took a shot at something fun and went for it. It was one of the 5 names that they sort of leaked up front. Nobody thought it would win. I have it backwards now, but that's what it looks like. It's just reversed.
no, it's actually right for us.
Yeah, no, it's right. It's right.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
it's only showing reverse for me. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It looks like a
Thanks, dude.
seahorse. It looks like a seahorse. That doesn't look like
Yeah.
a monster.
So
That's
man,
fair.
it-
That's
it's-
fair.
The red eye, it nails it. That red part of the logo is absolutely the key to the whole thing.
yeah, I think it's great. The way that they unveiled it in the video was the I first, and then the S surrounding it, which was great. All of the Seattle sports logos, with the exception of the Seahawks, have had the S forever. I love that they stuck with the name of the city there. The color scheme is cool. They teased the red a little bit when they were doing the initial announcements about that team. They tried out a salmon color as well, and we were pretty sure we were going to get Sockeyes. But they ended up changing it very slightly to a little bit redder tone, and then we got the eye of the Kraken, which I think is awesome. And then you get the scales down the back. Like, I just think it's super cool. I think it's a great color scheme. I'm really excited about it.
I agree with Doug. I watched
Poor
I
Nolan.
I watched the hype video this morning when it came out, and man, it got me. I expected Godzilla to come out of the water, and I think back to, I mean, most of us are old enough to remember, Clash of Titans and Jason and the Argonauts and all that, and I think the imagery that it presents back to that is, I think it's fantastic, and to me it works, and as a fan of the 31st hockey team here in Vegas, I'm real happy to see Seattle come in, and I hope that they have the same kind of success. And I don't know if I'll buy a jersey, but I might buy a hat, with that logo is sharp. When they in a couple of years, when they come out with the alternate jersey, I bet it's red.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the white one was super cool. I'll get that up here.
Yeah,
Well,
Vegas is coming out. Vegas is coming out with a alternate jersey. I think next season that's all gold, as opposed to the what they have now, which is the black jersey and the gray and the white. So
I feel like Nolan needs equal time here. I feel like he needs to step
all right,
out
just
of
a
the
second.
host role.
Listen,
and,
listen.
like,
I didn't
just
expect to do
lose
this.
his mind
I didn't expect you guys to conspire against me 3-1. I invited you on the show, and you guys are screwing me. Now let me just do this. I'm really pissed off. Just a second. I'm taking this thing off. This thing. I'm getting rid of this shit. Fuck this. Wait a second. Okay. Now we're getting rid of that shit. Now let me explain something to you. Now, all right. Here's the situation.
No, these are tight.
Wait a minute. Let me have the
These are
floor,
tight.
and then Counselor, I'll give you the floor. All right. Here's the situation. This thing happens at noon today, and I know sports, Minnesota Wild, whatever that is, and the Golden Knights, and all these weird names. Carolina, they can't even name a team after a city. They got to name it after two sports. I mean, it's just getting ridiculous. So they said Seattle Kraken, and I said, what in the F is a Kraken? So I go online. I'm not making this up. I went online, and I put in Kraken. And I know there's a rum called Kraken, Kraken. And I figured Kraken rum must have bought the team, the naming rights, whatever. And sure enough, I put in Kraken, and a cryptocurrency came up. I said, holy shit! They got cryptocurrency people buying NHL teams. I was like going mad. So then I read this thing, and there's some sea monster, mythological people that nobody outside of Seattle's ever heard of. Even Doug is sitting here trying to talk about, it's just maddening. I can't even believe it. And you guys, one from the East Coast, one from California, it's just maddening. I can't believe you guys. I'm getting ready to pull the plug. Anyway, I can't believe it.
Yeah, see, for folks my age, it's mostly associated with that rum. That was a very effective ad campaign when I was becoming of age to drink. Because I never drank before I was 21, of course. I have warm, fuzzy feelings about that whole ad campaign. And I swear, I woke up this morning, Randy texted me about it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna hate that. And then I was like, God damn it, I really love it, son of a bitch. And so, as angry as you are about the logo is how angry I am that I like the goddamn thing. So, I'm conflicted and I'm angry, just about a different thing.
There's the Kraken rum. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
Wasn't there a metal band also called Kraken?
Oh, I don't know. I have not heard of that. Maybe.
I bet there was.
Well, they're not the hockey team. Is there excitement for hockey in Seattle, Doug? I know that they were excited when they were trying to steal my Kings, but I'm curious what it's like for hockey.
It's a sport that people are really super excited about. They went through multiple rounds. They didn't even have to go through multiple rounds of season ticket pre-orders. They pre-sold all of them in 45 minutes. They have 10,000, 20,000 seat waiting list beyond the set of people who've already signed up. I happily made it onto the list. Unfortunately, not of club owners, but that's okay. The club owners have already selected seats in the new arena. The plebe owners have not yet, but that's okay. We're looking forward to it. What's also very exciting is we're going to get it as an initial tenant of a new arena, which is super fun. So I'm excited for that. I'm more excited for the jerseys. I think they're awesome. The white one is super tight. I want to have one of those right away. It's kind of cool. One of the things they said in the press conference was you can't buy the jerseys yet. And the reason they did that is so it wouldn't leak, which I thought was super. I thought the saying it was super cool that they went straight forward and said, look, this is why we didn't do it. You'll be able to order that jersey with that number relatively soon, but not yet. It also is also unclear. I didn't really zoom in on the tag. I can't tell if they've already got a maker or not. So I don't know if it's a Nike or an Under Armour or a CCM or somebody else's jersey. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm with you, Nolan, on I thought the Golden Knights and the Wild and some of these nicknames are really, really terrible. So it's interesting that I agree with you on so many of those, but Kraken, I just sort of like it.
Well, I'm sure that I'll be betting and losing some money on the team. So, all right, gentlemen. So let's wrap this up by giving a prediction we're going to be taking, I'm going to give you the same question essentially for two different sports. We're going to do NFL, yes or no, and percentages, a little comment if you like, on the following. And the NHL will ask that same question in just a moment. Chances are we're going to see kickoff in September as scheduled, and the chances that we will see the Super Bowl played as scheduled in, I guess it's late January, early February. Let's talk, and we're going to ask the same thing about the NHL, although that's a much shorter window. In fact, I'm going to throw a curveball again at you. Let's start with the NHL since that's a little bit easier of a question, talking about a 2 or 3 month schedule. What do you think, James?
Yeah, no, I think that the key thing is the time. That it is such a compressed schedule, and they're handling geography, I think, a little bit better than the NFL is. I would probably put that in like the 75% range if they go ahead and are able to get through. I think that I've looked at their plan. I mean, to the extent that anyone knows what's going on. It certainly seems pretty solid. So I would say, somewhere in the 75% range.
All right, we're going to come back to you in the NFL in a moment. Randy, on the NHL?
Yeah, I was pretty skeptical a few weeks ago, but at this point, I'm pretty sure the teams are getting on the plane on Sunday to go to the Toronto and Edmonton, and I think we'll be watching hockey next week. Whether it makes it all the way to the Stanley Cup, which would be, I think, at the end of September, is when they would have the final series. I think they've got a strong chance if they can keep the bubbles tight. The biggest kicker will be if one team gets 10 people that come down with the virus at the same time. I don't know how you recover from that in a playoff situation.
Excuse me. What will they do, Randy? What's your guess if that happens?
I mean, is using that number 10, using the number 10 players. I mean, a hockey team generally fields 20 skaters in a game. If 10 of them are sick and and again, they have to have, I think, 2 negative tests before they can come back. So that could be anywhere from 3-4 days to, a month. I think that stops it. I think if a team loses half their team, I don't see how you go forward and maintain the integrity of the event.
So we've got some working examples already, and I'm trying to imagine the first one, which is what if you lose both goaltenders? But let's leave that one alone for a second. MLS is a great example. They restarted their season a couple of weeks ago with a play-in tournament that's all in one bubble in Orlando. It's working relatively well. 2 teams were not in it because they had outbreaks inside the team. They just dropped the teams and said, okay, we're going to go forward with the N-2 that we have. Otherwise, they haven't had an issue in the bubble. The MLS competition after the first couple of games has looked pretty good. People were very ragged the first few games. And playing in Orlando, everyone has to get used to. It's way too hot there to play soccer in the summertime. So they have games at 9 a.m., they have games at 9 p.m. They're making it work. The bubble's working, the NBA is looking like they're going to make it work, and I think the NHL is going to make it work too. But I don't think you have to stop the whole league. I do think you drop games and teams forfeit if they break it. And I think that works better too with respect to managing contracts. Player conduct is a part of the contract. And what happens if somebody gets it because they were proven to be irresponsible? Is their contract voidable? How does that work, right? There's a million things we don't know yet. I do think they're going to start. I like James's number for 75% of every team finishes, because I don't think every team's going to play every game. I'd be shocked if that happened. I'd be super pleased, but I'd be shocked if that happened.
You think there'll be forfeits? You think there'll be actual forfeits of games then?
Well, what benefit does it have? Is there any benefit to playing with? Is there benefit to playing 30, 29, 28 teams? Hell yes. So I think it's better than one team has an outbreak and you close the whole season down for everyone? I don't know that you do that. I think if 2 or 3 do, you do, because it's clear it's moving around. But if one team has a problem because somebody broke curfew, I don't think you shut the whole league down as a result of that. Again, what we're seeing it in business, we're going to see it in sports too. That people are making real-time decisions on this stuff, and it's not something that billion-dollar businesses are used to doing.
It also depends on what team too. I mean, I can understand, if like the number one seed gets it, then gosh, there'll be a whole set of feelings versus if it's the number 8 seed and like what does that all feel like? And so,
but then if
I
it's
think
the Leafs, you just keep going with the season. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't see how one team can upset the whole apple cart. I think that there's too much of an appetite for sports. There's too much money to be made. I sort of agree. I think that there'll be some sort of forfeit or maybe a small delay in that particular series or something like that. But I can't envision one team getting the train off the tracks.
All right, good discussion, gentlemen. I will lead in by saying that I thought Doug made a very good point about the Major League Soccer success story, really playing these games in the tournament in Orlando, which again is going fairly well. Again, the difference is profound, though, that NBA teams will be playing in closed arenas and locker rooms are a little tighter, and baseball is a very different sport in terms of contact. Football is the ultimate contact sport. Well, hockey too, obviously, but the very nature of the season where you have games every night pretty much versus games once a week. I mean, some big differences here. So we'll wrap it up by talking about the same question on the NFL, the chances that we see kickoff, a 16-game schedule, and the Super Bowl. What do you think, James?
Yeah, this is by far the toughest one in my opinion, and I'm football is my favorite sport. I've already drafted 30 plus fantasy football teams. I'm like preparing like it's gonna happen, but when I like stop with all that and sit in a cold dark room with just my own thoughts, I just don't see how football gets all the way through. It's all the things that you're talking about. It's close quarters, in indoor stadium some, but close cramped locker rooms. So many players is the key. I mean, 53 players. It's and now they're talking about maybe even extending out rosters. It becomes just a math equation. You just have more people, it's more problems. And I would say something in the range of 20% that it's on time. I do think that football, though, is its own animal, and they have their own timeline and their own rules, and they dictate to television market. If they can pause the season and then go later, I think that's possible. But I just don't see. I don't see how the virus doesn't get several teams and it be a problem.
Randy?
Yeah, I think, James, I think we kind of spoke about this for a bit a while back, what we thought the odds would be. And I think the odds are strong that the season starts on time. I think the chance of us making it through Thanksgiving and Christmas with NFL continuing as normal is pretty low. I just don't see it. It's the wrong time of year. With the regular flu, and I just think it's going to be really tough to make it through an entire NFL season, especially when you play just once a week. Like we discussed that it's possible they could delay a hockey game at night or two, or you could do that, but you can't do that really with the NFL in any kind of sensible fashion. I mean, I suppose you could play games on Wednesday, that should have been played on Monday, but it's just so disruptive, you can't play Wednesday and then Sunday. And so I think it's going to be disruptive, and it's way more likely the season does not complete.
The final word to Doug.
I think the NFL knows it. Like, I'll use my experience as an example. I've been a Seahawks season ticket holder since 2004. I got an email from my ticket contact about a month ago that offered me the opportunity to opt out of my 2020 season tickets, no penalty, and just resume in my own seats in 2021. And it was about whether or not I was comfortable going to the games. They've already said in some of the stadiums that are relatively close in, like CenturyLink in Seattle, that the first 8 rows are going to be blocked off, even if they do seat. Right now, if they were to start the season tomorrow, it wouldn't be legal. Public gatherings in King County are at 50 people. Like that's not happening. The likelihood, given where we are now, it just doesn't seem very likely. And I think the league already knows it, because they wouldn't be talking to their loyal customers that way if they thought for sure it was going forward.
Excellent, gentlemen. Well, I will just say that I don't know what's going to happen. No one really does. I thought Randy made a very good point. It's very frightening to think that a second wave, what that could be. We're all talking about the end of the first wave, hopefully here, or what's happening in the summer. And we're kind of ascribing current conditions to October, November, December, and that's impossible to do. And certainly based on the thing that happened 100 years ago, we could see, a worsening situation, in which case the season would be over. The other thing is that we wonder about the constitution of teams, whether 45, what will the quality of 45 players be? And, if players are making 10 or $15 million a year, do they want to go out there and risk not only their lives, but their livelihoods? I think there's a chance to see a lot of second and third string quarterbacks and players all the way down the roster getting a significant playing time, which really throws a monkey wrench into the predictability of games. And in a very, very cynical way, as a fan, it makes it interesting. This isn't really, there's nothing predictable about the NFL ever anyway. But, watching I've got to watch every single day injury reports. If you're gambling on the games, man, this is going to be the Wild West. So, if you're into the action, putting all the morality of the COVID thing aside, which obviously is the top priority here, but just from an action or spectator sport standpoint, this is going to be an amazing 3 or 4 months with all 4 major sports hopefully going on and action every single day. And like Doug said, sometimes at 9 o'clock in the morning, there will be games. So I'll just leave it with that. Any other final words, gentlemen?
Yeah, the gambling is the really interesting thing. When you have a sport that's based on like, hey, when the line opens, I'm gonna pounce. I'm gonna get those weak lines, and I'm gonna, that is really challenging. Like, I think about the Super Contest. The Super Contest publishes its lines. I forget on which day. I think it's either Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday or Wednesday. Regardless, like, that line could be so outdated for so many teams based on injuries and things like that. I just don't know how books or gamblers are going to take that. And let's be honest, like, for football, that's a huge part of the attraction of football is fantasy and gambling. And, I wonder if the appetite for it goes, if the appetite for gambling goes, and if those are, we'll sort of see. But that's an interesting thing. I can't imagine placing a bet on a game much before Sunday during, injury report time. That seems like really just gambling the hell out of your money.
One of the things I was wondering is if they would, if the books would change up some of the rules. Like the reason I suggested is, like, I think about baseball, right? If you make a bet on an individual baseball game and the starting pitcher doesn't go, there's no action. That's significantly more likely for a starting goaltender or for a starting quarterback. Like, I wonder if you start to see hedged action like that, where the starting quarterback is critical to the action and there's no action if that guy is out because he's sick.
Yeah.
It seems like there'd be an opportunity for like the books to sell insurance, kind of like on blackjack, and charge a 2% insurance fee that allows you to cancel your bet anytime up until game time and just give up the 2% vig. Boy, they'd make so much fucking money.
So much money. So much money. So much money.
Well, for those of you watching, another opportunity to exploit the gamblers and get the gambler's edge. So way to go. Gentlemen, great show. Thanks for joining me. A lot of fun. Learned a lot. Very interesting. You guys are wrong about, all that logo stuff, but that's okay. We'll have you back up.
Good stuff right there.
Often wrong, seldom in doubt. So
thank you again. That's James Hammer, Randy Colling, Doug Grigsmore. Thank you very much for joining me. I am Nolan Dalla with Slapshot, a special edition talking about team nicknames. Let's be back talking about some more sports later in the week, in the month, in the year. See you again. Thanks again. Bye-bye.